Welcome back. Today I am once again going to try to solve some puzzles on chess.com. If you're new here, I'm not a titled player or a chess coach or expert of any kind. I'm just a random middle-aged person trying to get better at chess, and one of the ways that I do that is by solving chess puzzles or attempting to. I will follow my checklist, which should be on the screen there. I'm going to look for checks, captures, threats, and then before I make my move, I'll see how much danger I'm in. And sometimes I forget to follow my checklist, so forgive me for that. In this puzzle, I am playing with the black pieces. I do have a couple of checks. It looks like both of them are with the knight. I have a check here on h2 with the knight, and I have a check here on e3 with the knight. I think those are my only checks. My queen can't give a check right now. My rook cannot give a check right now. So I'm going to evaluate those two checks, and then I'll look at captures. I mean, obviously that one is a capture as well as a check, so it will get evaluated here. If I check with the knight on h2, the king cannot come this way because my rook is cutting off those squares. So the opponent would have to come to the e-file behind this bishop. Now, if it went to e1, I would have a follow-up check with the rook down here on g1. And then once the king moved out of check, I would win the queen. So I will assume then that the king will move to e2, where it doesn't look like I have a follow-up check. Yes, actually I would have a follow-up check here by taking the pawn. I almost didn't see that. That one, it looks like they could block with the bishop or the queen. If they blocked with the queen, I would go ahead and take the rook afterwards. So I assume that they would block with the bishop then. And then my only check that I know of would be to come back with the queen, in which case they could block with the bishop again. So I don't know that that's a great check. Let's go look at the other one. In this one, also, because of the rook, the king would not be able to go to the g-file. The bishop would be gone. And again, the king would have to come to... No, it wouldn't. In this case, there would be another possibility. They could take my... And I know I'm getting my colors mixed up, but if I capture the bishop with check, they could just take back with the pawn. And then I wouldn't have a knight anymore. If the king moved, obviously, I think I would then take their queen with discovered check from my queen. So let's assume that they'll take back with the pawn, and then they're not in check anymore, but they're still on the f-file. And in that case, I could check on the f-file with my queen, not here because their light squared bishop is guarding f5 and their pawn would be guarding f4. So the only follow-up check I would have would be f6. And then the king would have to move to the e-file, and I could check with the rook on one of those two squares. And if it had moved to e1, then I could take the queen after it got out of check that time. But if it had gone to e2 and I checked on g2, and of course my queen would be here on f6, so then it would have to either move down, in which case I could check down there and then I would win the queen. It looks like I would win the queen either way with my rook, but I'm down a minor piece right now. And if it seems like I'm taking a long time on this puzzle, that's because I want to get it right. I don't want to miss anything. This is a check and a capture. It gets my knight out of danger, right? My knight's currently in danger. And I think we already determined that this check, the king just hides, and at best I'm going to pick up a pawn. Whereas this way, they're still up a minor piece because I would have lost my knight for a bishop. And so we'll each have a queen and a rook, but my opponent is going to have an extra bishop at that point. So when I check with the queen, they have to come up here, and those two spots are taken up by their pawn and bishop. I'll check. They won't be able to go back or over, so they would have to go down, and then I will check on the back rank and win their queen for my rook. So then I would have a queen for their bishop and their rook, which would be better than what I have now. So I'm going to try that. If I do anything else, for example, take the pawn first, because that is one of the other captures I have to evaluate, I think they're just going to take my knight, and then I'm really down. So let's try this. Oh, it just stopped. Oh my goodness, I thought it was going to keep going. And due to the ongoing glitch that chess.com has where it doesn't count the first puzzle and doesn't place it in my archive, I am going to copy down this number by hand, 2440716, so I will be able to link to it as I usually do with all the puzzles. The links will be in the description for those of you who like to go work through the puzzles on your own. Some of you like to do it before watching my video. But I am going to click the analysis button because I am curious as to what the opponent would have done in that situation. White was actually ahead before they moved this pawn, but once they moved that pawn, black has a huge advantage, but only if we take the bishop on e3, and it actually says that their best move would be to move the king now, rather than to take here. Now see, I'm surprised by that, because if they do one of those two moves, move the king to e1 or e2, my next move is definitely going to be taking the queen with my knight. And I had already said that during the puzzle, but I had no idea that those were their best two moves. But no, I would have taken the queen here if they had moved the king first, right? And then they would have taken back, I assume. Okay, but what if they had taken with the pawn? Like, right here, it says that's their third best move, mate in 8 if they take with the pawn. Okay, now there I would have failed the puzzle, because I was going to check here. Queen f6 check is not nearly as good as just taking this pawn. Really? Because I was going to go to queen f6. That forces the king to one of these two squares. It says e1 is best. Why wouldn't it go to e2 first? I don't know. But let's say that they played their best move. Okay, then rook to g1 would be my next move. And then they would come up here, and it wouldn't even be my best move to take with the queen after that. I mean, to take the queen with the rook. My best move would be to take this pawn with check, and then they would block with the bishop, and then I would take the rook, while their queen is still there. That's what it says. My best move is to take this pawn, and it says they could block with either one, but let's say they blocked with the bishop. Okay, then I take the rook, and of course they would take back, and then I would take their queen? Yeah, I would have failed the puzzle had it kept going at either way. Either way. Right here, after I took the bishop, I would have made the wrong move had they moved over. No, had they moved over, I would have taken the queen. I would have made the right move there, but then my next move probably would have been wrong. But had they taken with the pawn, which is their third best move, and on puzzles, the opponent doesn't always make the best move, at least when I've gone back and analyzed later, I would have made the wrong move here. My best move is to take that pawn and still be down on material, but it says I have mate in 6 if they play their best moves here. Wow. Okay. Well, I've spent enough time on that puzzle. I'm glad I got it right. Let's go on to the next one. I guess I properly reasoned out my first move, but I completely misunderstood what would happen after that. I've got a lot of work to do. Okay, in this one it looks like they just took my rook. So again, I am down on material, but I have 2 pieces pointed at their g2 pawn, and that strikes me right away as one of these moves has got to be best, right? I'm going to assume that it's the rook first because that's a check, and it is my only check in this position, so let me evaluate that. Because it's protected by the bishop, the king only has one legal move, and that is coming over to h1. Then I assume I would take the pawn with my rook, which would discover the check from the bishop, and the king would have to come back, and then I would check again, I guess? But then it would have to move again, and then I would retract the rook, which would be mate. But I think I have to take the pawn first, don't I? Yeah, I'm not going to look at anything else. I know that if I take this bishop now, that would be a mistake. It seems like the obvious take-back move, but they're going to check me. I'm going to have to come out. They're going to check me. It's going to get weird pretty quick. Also, their king's going to have a getaway square if that rook is not where it is now. Right now, the king only has one legal move, but if I do all that other stuff first and this rook isn't there, their king would have 2 legal moves when I eventually get around to checking them. Okay, so let's check. They'll move over. If I come back then, they can block that bishop's check with the pawn. That's why I think that my second move has to be taking the pawn. They wouldn't be able to take back with the rook because they're in check from my bishop. So they would have to come over. Then I would check again. And then when they went back, then I think bringing my rook back anywhere would be mate after they block with the bishop and I take it. So I'm going to check with the rook on g2. Fingers crossed. Okay, it did move over. Now, as we said, if I come back now, it's not mate because they block with the pawn, which is protected by the rook. So I think I take the pawn first. Pretty sure. It came back over. Well, now it's got to be this. I'm pretty sure. Because it's not taking the rook, right? Because they just take back one of those 2 ways, and then I'm way down on material, so it has to be the check. Oh, and it stopped. And we do see that the glitch is still ongoing because I got 5 points for the first puzzle, and it says I got 5 for the second one, but this score is only 5 points higher than where I started, so I've only gotten 5 points, not 10. So my guess is that that first puzzle has disappeared into the ether as we expected, but I'm pretty sure here, maybe the puzzle didn't continue because I would have so many possible moves on my next move. Is that the case? Let's look at the analysis board. Their first move was there. Okay. Yeah, it had to be this. They only had 1 legal move, and then it had to be the, okay, I was right about that. They come back over. I check here. But see, here they have that legal move again. Okay, it is as I thought, and I think maybe these puzzle computers aren't set up to handle multiple options. Well, I take that back. I'm pretty sure I have done at least one puzzle in the past that had 2 possible solutions, and it let me do one of them. But that could be my memory being incorrect. But here I have multiple possible solutions. And as I said, they would have to block the bishop's check with their rook. I would take it, and then that would be mate. So I guess the puzzle software wasn't set up to handle all 4 of those possible moves with my rook. Only 3 are listed because I have it set to show 3 lines. Just wanted to make sure that I wasn't completely misunderstanding that one as well. Let's go to the next one. All right, this one is going to be quite a bit different, I think, because I only have 1 check that I can see, and it's capturing this knight. I don't think that's good. Yeah, that is my only check. However, there are multiple captures available on the board, but I think besides that one, which is also a capture, I think all the other captures are pawns. That's a pawn, that's a pawn, that's a pawn, that's a pawn, and of course my knight can capture those 2 pawns as well. So I have multiple possible captures here, 5 different pawns. I don't think that one's good because the pawn just takes back, and the same is going to be true of my knight captures on these 2 pawns. A pawn would just capture back either way. Here, I think their queen would just take my queen, and I don't have a good follow-up. Now, one thing I like about this is that it distracts or attempts to distract the rook from the back rank. And not only is that square also protected by my bishop, but then if the rook isn't defending this knight anymore, then I get the knight with check, but then the king could just move out of check or block. But this is a capture and a threat. I mean, it's threatening the rook if the rook doesn't take first. I don't think the queen would take because of my bishop over here, but it is threatening to take the rook. And if the rook doesn't take, if the rook does take, then I get the knight with check. If they block with the queen, then I just pick up their rook and have got 2 pieces and a pawn for my rook. If the queen doesn't block and the king just moves out of check, then I suppose I could leave my queen there and again take the rook. So I would have picked up 2 pieces and a pawn for my rook. Or at that point, it might be better to take the rook with my queen because then their queen would be pinned against their king, so they would feel obligated to take back, and I would take. But either way, the queens would have been an even trade, and then I would have picked up 2 pieces and a pawn for my rook. I think that's best. I'm looking around. Are there any other threats? I don't think it's best to take with the bishop first, because that doesn't really threaten anything. Well, I guess it's threatening the knight. And again, if they took, that's why it's not good to take with the bishop first, because if they take, then I don't have anything protecting this. Wait, they take. No, I could still do the queen check and still do this. But it's not threatening the rook. That's why I think maybe the rook is better, because it's threatening the rook. If I take with the bishop first, they don't need to take back, right? I don't see anything else. In a game, it almost looks like, I know I think of games differently than puzzles, and maybe I should, I don't know. But I think here I would probably take with the bishop without thinking about it very much, but because it is a puzzle, I'm thinking that taking with the rook is slightly better. Not only does, again, the bishop not really threaten anything, it's threatening the knight, but then but the rook is threatening 2 pieces. I just realized it's threatening the queen as well as the rook. So they have to respond to that one way or another. If they take back with the queen, which I don't expect, again, the bishop takes the queen, and I've gotten the queen for a rook and a bishop. And again, if they take back with their rook, I'm also getting the knight with check, and then I'll get the rook too. So I'm going to try the rook move. Fingers crossed, it's got to be best. Okay, they did take back. And again, in a game, especially a bullet or blitz game, I would be tempted to take back immediately, but then I lose the bishop too. I think I have to take the knight. Okay, and the king moved out of check. Now here is where at first I said, now I can just pick up the bishop, the rook. But I think I'd pick up the rook with my queen. And then if they take back, I get their queen, right? It's one of those 2, bishop or queen taking the rook. Let's see. If I take with the queen, I assume they'll take back because their queen is kind of pinned. Actually, they could block with the knight, I suppose. But if they take back, I would take back with my bishop, and then I would have a bishop and 2 knights and a rook. And they would just have 2 minor pieces and a rook. So I would be up a piece at that point. So I'm going to take back with the queen. Fingers crossed again, because I'm just not sure. Oh, they did take back. Okay, well then it has to be this. Yeah, that one wasn't in doubt at all. I'm not sure why that was part of the puzzle. Okay, wow. Okay, that puzzle's rated 2240, so I'm definitely getting some high-rated puzzles. Again, it doesn't have a theme. I don't know what the theme would be. What would the theme be? Removing the defender? I removed the defender of the knight, I guess. Once again, I'm glad I got it right. I know this takes me a long time. Again, that's the way I work through them. Hopefully you're still, you have stuck around this far in the video, and hopefully you're getting something out of it. But mainly this is for me to get better at chess. Time for at least one more. If it takes me that long, just one more. Oh, wow. An end game or close to end game puzzle. I have the white pieces. I doubted just a little bit at first because of all the not white pieces that are down here. There's a lot of them, and I just have these two left. I'm gonna guess it's this check down here. It has to be, right? And then they can block with the one rook, and I'll take it, and that's mate. Yeah, whatever my opponent just did here, that was a huge, not good move. They should have taken this pawn with check, I'm pretty sure. Wait, I have this protected check too. But that can't be it, because the king just moves over, and if I check again, it gets away. So I think it has to be this one. Sorry, I thought my phone was making a buzzing noise at me, but that must have been something else buzzing. I need to take a walk through the house and see what's buzzing. Maybe I'm just getting old and losing my faculties because I heard it again. Yeah, that check, they don't have any legal moves except to block with the rook. Okay, here we go. Oh, and that one didn't have a theme. Well, I know what to add to this one. This is a mate in two, right? That's checkmate. Mate in two. And I did it quickly enough that I have enough time for one more. So I'm going to get 5 in this video, unless I'm counting wrong. Was that just my third one? Oh, and that was rated 2292. You can't see it behind my camera, but that one's rated 2292. That's a pretty high rating for a mate in two puzzle. And the pass rate is less than 50%. Very interesting. Oh, wait, I got 10 points for it? Good for me. Deep breath, fingers crossed, next puzzle. Oh, wow. My least favorite kind. It's my least favorite kind because we haven't developed any pieces yet. I did get castled somehow, but only because I got 2 pieces out and pushed some pawns. All right, this knight is hanging, right? Oh, no, it's protected by the bishop. That's why they moved the pawn up instead of taking it. Okay, back to my checklist. Do I have any checks? This bishop cannot check. My queen cannot check. I don't have any captures either besides these pawns. Is that it? Also, look what my opponent is lining up here for. And they're hoping to clear this rook's path down here too. Oh, wow. Well, it's my fault for clicking next. I should have known better. Okay, well, since I'm pretty sure I don't have any checks, I'm just going to evaluate the 3 possible captures that I have in this position. If I capture the e6 pawn, they can take back 2 different ways. Oh, they can take back 3 different ways, and my knight's still hanging. If I take here, they can capture that 2 different ways, but my knight's not hanging anymore. I think this would be worse or just as bad as the bishop one because, again, they have 3 different ways to capture that back. But I'm guessing that if I take either one of those pawns, I should do it with my knight because it's the piece that is hanging. Do I have any threats? That's the next question. That's not a threat. It's pointed at kind of at the king, but there's a pawn in the way, and they could just block with a different pawn or the bishop or the knight. So not only is this really not threatening anything serious, but they have 3 different ways to block, even if that pawn wasn't there. And the pawn is there. I'm remembering that I think in a recent video I added to my checklist, and it was underneath the checklist part, the 3rd one for threats, I added in to look for undefended pieces as well as checkmate threats. Here, I'm pretty sure I don't have a checkmate threat, but look for undefended or trapped pieces. I did notice that this bishop is not defended, but I don't think I have a safe way to get to it. I can point my bishop at it, obviously, but they would just take it, right? I can point my queen at it, but that seems foolhardy. Their rook is undefended, but the only way I could possibly threaten the rook was to take the aforementioned f7 pawn, and that I'm pretty sure they would just take back. But when it comes to trapped pieces, I did notice that their queen doesn't have a lot of squares that it can go to. So I'm wondering, if I slide this bishop back to d3, where it's protected by not only by my pawn, but also by my queen, and it's threatening the queen. And it also hits some of the squares that the queen can currently move to, because those are 3 of the squares that the queen can currently move to. Well, 4 if you count this one. Okay, so let's think about bishop to d3 as a threat on their queen. It's not going to go here, I'm pretty sure, because my pawn will take it. And if it goes here, my queen takes it. And if it takes the knight, my other bishop takes it. I mixed up the colors again, but that's okay, you get the point. So what can they do if I play bishop to d3 threatening their queen? They can throw this pawn forward, the f-pawn, but then I can use en passant to take that pawn. And then their queen would be being threatened again, but then it gets away. then it just takes my pawn, and we've just traded pawns. And now I have gone past my 30 minutes. Oh my, yeah, I shouldn't have clicked on this one, but that almost looks like something I should try in a game, and something that I might try in a game, because I do have a tendency, if my opponent brings their queen out before they've developed most of their other pieces, and if I have any pieces out that can threaten it, I very often do. I would be willing in a game to leave this knight hanging for a moment to threaten their queen and see what happens. But I don't know what to do after they play f5 and I en passant, then their queen gets out of danger. Do I not have, I don't think I have a good follow-up then, because then my knight is still hanging and I've just traded a pawn. But you know what? I don't see anything else. We might undo all the progress that we've made in the previous part of this video by losing this puzzle. I've gone up what? Oh, I've gone up 21 points, but I might lose, I don't know, 17 for failing this puzzle and be back almost to where we started. That would be sad, but let's try it. Okay, they did play f5. I'm almost beholden. Not quite forced to take this, but it's got to be best, right? Otherwise, they've just taken more space in the center, and I've helped them out. They're guarding a bunch of light squares here. Yeah, I think I have to take it with my pawn, but I don't know. I don't know what we're accomplishing here. I'm just doing it because I don't see anything else. It's still going. Oh, right. Well, if I pull the knight back to get it out of danger and threaten the queen, I'm pretty sure they're going to take my knight. And yes, I could take back, but we've traded pawns, and then we would have traded 2 minor pieces. Oh, but I would be pointing at their rook at that point with my bishop. But then they could block that with the pawn or the knight. What is it? What is it? Wait. Is it this check? No, because they just block with the pawn. Wait. I have a bishop pointed there too. If they block with the pawn, I just take the pawn. What if they don't block with the pawn? What if they just move out of check? Then my knight's still hanging. Oh, but then they wouldn't be able to take my knight because I would take their rook. Or should I? No, I shouldn't check with the bishop first, right? That doesn't make any sense, because then they take it and I don't have any threats anymore. Does it? And it doesn't make any sense now to take this pawn, right? I don't know. I got lucky to get the first 2 moves of this puzzle correct, and oh, please don't fail it here. I'm going to try to check on h5. Oh, it stopped. I'm glad it stopped. Let me be clear. I'm glad it stopped because I want it to be done. I've gone way past 30 minutes now, but what would they have done? Would they have blocked here? And if so, would I have taken with the bishop or the queen? Probably the bishop, right? Analysis board. Okay, so that was right. So it was a trapped piece, kind of. Wow, I'm surprised the puzzle continued. There's not that big of a difference between those 2 moves. Usually there's at least like a 3-point difference between the moves if the puzzle keeps going. That's almost 2 points though, so here. And it was definitely their best move to take it with the queen. Okay. Wow, their second best move that's not that much worse is to take the knight with the queen. Oh my. Okay. And and this is even closer than the last one. This isn't even a 1.5 point difference. Okay. It says by a noticeable margin that their best move is to get the king out of check. And then Stockfish thinks after that I would play knight to c3. I probably wouldn't play knight to c3 then. I don't know what I would do, but I probably wouldn't play that. Oh, that one didn't have a theme either. Well, if you made it this far, I do appreciate you spending your time here. I'll see you in the next one.